Now, if you have large sets of data, as you often do in Power Query, then a handy wee thing to narrow down the volume of records you're working with and improve the efficiencies and the performance of Power Query is to turn on or use parameter queries. Parameter queries actually narrow down the volume of records that you're working with and make things perform a lot better. Let's have a look at a query we've got called orders. Now, when I look at orders, and I particularly look down here in the bottom left of my screen, it says that the orders query contains 830 rows. Okay, so let's say I want to narrow down the volume using parameter queries. Now, if you're going to use parameter queries, you have to go to View, you have to go to Parameters and make sure that this option's ticked. And once you've ticked it, it stays on, so it's all good. But you need to turn that on if you want to use parameter queries. So then I want to go back home, and now I want to go to Manage Parameters and choose New Parameter. And I want to create a new parameter. It's a date parameter, so I'll give it that name. And I just want to put here narrows down the volume of records based on date. Now the data type is date, and I want to put a current value in, 13th of September 1994, and OK. Okay, so I've made a date parameter. You see it now here in the bottom of the queries list. So we've got this date parameter. So say I go to orders now and I hit the drop down on order date and I want to filter. So I go to filters and I go to custom. Whoops, filters and custom filter. Here I go after, is after, and here I go date parameter or parameter, and there's my date parameter there. And so I'll go OK. And so instead of 830 rows, it will have filtered the data, and I'll only be seeing those ones that are after that particular date. Oh, except my date's wrong. So I click on my date, I go back to here, I change that to a 1, and I go back to orders, and as soon as I do, it's just taken effect, and down here I see 798 rows instead of 830 rows. Now what if I just want to see those records that are after, say, the 1st of the 1st, 1995? I go to my date parameter and I change it to the 1st of the 1st, 95. Now if I go to my orders, it narrows down the volume of records I'm looking at to 709 rows. So a parameter is something that you can go to and you can easily edit it, 96, go to orders, and it naturally cuts down the volume of records that you're looking at because this has been filtered using custom filter and using that date parameter. And so you can use that parameter on other queries as well to narrow down the volume of records that you're actually working with, and they call them parameter queries. If you want to manage your parameter queries, you can go into Manage Parameters, you can edit parameters and change it here, but it is just as easy to go here and edit it directly from the queries list. And you may have to refresh your data if it doesn't update automatically, though it should.